Well, let's look at the New South Wales election a little closer this morning. There has been some intervention with Fairfield Mayor Frank Carbone saying Labor is prioritising marginal seats at the expense of his residents, and he joins me live now. Frank, thanks so much for your time. Mayor Frank, I should say.
No, Frank's fine.
What's your problem with this announcement surrounding the Metro from Chris Minns?
Well, it's not a problem for me. It's a problem for our community out here in Western Sydney. These projects, when it comes to the Metro, there's been 4 different options identified. It's been done over a number of years, both through federal, state and local governments. It's been done through independent authorities such as Transport for New South Wales. These options, in particular the one that he's actually taking out, which is the east-west, which is the spine of Sydney, which is surrounded by millions of people, was actually identified as a priority for Infrastructure New South Wales and also Infrastructure Australia. And for Chris Minns to turn out in the middle of the night and actually take away these 2 projects, these 2 projects that actually should have been assessed along with the other 2 independently, and the governments of the future should be spending the money where the money is actually needed. I mean, how can you, in all respect to Tallywood and Campbelltown, where Chris Minns is actually proposing it? I mean, there's not too many people that would like to travel north-south. I mean, in the mornings out here in Western Suburbs, everybody gets up in the morning and they all chase the sun east and they come home west. And yet here we are facing a scenario where in Western Sydney, people are still going to have to face hours and hours on public transport. And I mean, for Chris Minns to take away those 2 options as competitive options before an election, I think that's really poor. I think it's political. I think those rail lines only go to 2 different areas where they're marginal seats, such as Riverton or Leppington, and I think he should be considering the needs of our city first and foremost.
Okay, so he would argue there's toll relief in some of those suburbs. It doesn't cover public transport, of course. I spoke to him on Friday. If he's not going ahead with these 2 metro projects, perhaps he's got something else up his sleeve to give him the benefit of the doubt. Would there be another project in Western Sydney that would placate you here?
Well, not like this, because this the east-west from the airport is actually paramount to actually joining the 3 major cities, Aerotropolis, Parramatta and Sydney.
Yeah.
And it's actually the spine of where millions of people live. And if you really wanted to look after the people of Sydney when it comes to tolls, he would build this, because he would get cars off the road through one of the most urbanised areas in Sydney, where millions of infill developments will be going ahead and for generations to come, a lot of unit development and a lot of infill development. And if he really wanted to help people with cost of living, this is the priority. But what I'll say again is this: why take the 2 projects off the table, which have been identified by Transport for New South Wales, of which is the one project of which Infrastructure Australia and Infrastructure New South Wales have said it's a priority? No offence to Chris Minns, he wouldn't know more about this than me or anybody else, because I was there with the federal, state and other local councils when this was identified in 2016. Right. And this is about achieving a 30-minute city. It's about people not staying in their cars, not having to pay tolls, and being able to connect through 3 major cities, which is Aerotropolis, Parramatta and Sydney.
Okay, so he's not here, so let me play devil's advocate on that from what he has said
I'm happy
today.
to debate him on it any time.
Yeah, well, perhaps we should do that. That's a great idea.
Very happy to do that.
Okay, let's do that. Okay, so he said in his media conference this morning that essentially they don't know how they're going to pay for the first 2 stages of the Metro. So why would they go ahead and commit to the second 2 stages when you don't know how to pay for the first?
Well,
Is that
why
fair?
why would you take away 2 options? So then all he's doing is allowing 2 options on the table. I'm not saying he's got to build all 4, but do the business case on all 4. Don't do the business case on just 2. To say that he can't commit to all 4, but why doesn't he get rid of the other 2? Who wants to go from Tallywood to Campbelltown? Honestly, how many people want to travel from Tallywood to Campbelltown? I mean, why not allow all 4 options and let them to be independently assessed? Infrastructure for New South Wales said that these are the most important options. So why did he get rid of these 2 options? That's only because he's playing politics and trying to drive the rail lines in the areas that he wants to win, which are the 2 marginal seats. And I think, unfortunately, this is not a good sign of a leader. If you're a leader, you want to shape the future of a city. You want to actually put down the future projects that the community needs now. There are millions of people that live down the spine of Sydney east-west. We all know what traffic's like. And you have to connect the Aerotropolis to Parramatta, the second major city, and to Sydney. If you fly in from overseas, the last place you want to go is to Tallywood. No offence to the wonderful people that live in Tallywood, but they would want to go and see Sydney. They would want to go and see Parramatta. And why would you take that off the table? Why would you take it off as a competitive option? I can only say that he's taken it off as a competitive option because he doesn't want it to be assessed independently, all four of them, because he knows that the two that he picked will not get the tick. And actually, what I can tell you from inside information is I'm actually challenging the Premier to get Transport for New South Wales to release the draft business case modelling, which I think will show that the East-West proposal is the one option that is required first. Of course, they can't all be built at one time. We accept that. I accept what he says. But you need to take the independent advice, not take the political advice. And this is the problem with state elections. The political advice is being taken on top of the proper advice that is required.
Frank, I've got to say, it doesn't sound like you want Labor to win this election or you want Chris Minns to be Premier. Would that be a fair assessment?
No, I have to say this is not against Chris Minns or against Dominic Perrottet. I just want people in Western Sydney to have a voice and for them to be treated fairly.
Well, it's got to be one or the other, though. Chris Minns or Dominic Perrottet. It seems like Dominic Perrottet would be your preference.
Well, as far as Transport, I would prefer Dominic Perrottet. I've got to say that now because Chris Minns has taken away the most important project.
You also agree with Dominic Perrottet on gambling.
I agree with him on gambling, but I don't agree with him with West Invest funding, where he has also gone and pork-barrelled all the marginal seats at the expense of the most needy. What we can't do is allow politicians to pork-barrel, and then we have a city that is divided into two, divided into the haves and the have-nots. But as far as Transport goes, I think Chris Minns made a big error here. He's playing politics, and Transport is a big-ticket item. You can't, as you said, you can't build these one project every 2 years. You can only possibly build one every few years. And currently, you have a borer underneath 5 Dock that is heading towards Parramatta, and that same borer should actually continue to go all the way to the airport, to the second airport. So all I'm looking after is my community here in Western Sydney, which to me are being played political football by those.
Perhaps you could look after them a little better if you ran for Cabramatta.
Well, we're thinking about that. But look, I haven't made up my mind about that.
You're running out of time, aren't you, Frank?
Well, no, I have faith in my community. I have faith that the community here in Fairfield, which I've served for a very, very long time, will make a decision that they think that they will decide who the best candidate is for them. They're not stupid.
When's that going to be decided? I mean.
Well, nominations close next Wednesday, and one of the driving forces for me is what's in it for my community. It's not about what's in it for me. I'm quite happy being the mayor, but if there's nothing in it for my community, that's where the issues will come. And I just want something to be put on the table for my community.
Yeah.
I want them to be treated like
Frank, you must be looking at the polls right now, seeing how tight the race is. It looks like it's going to be a minority government. I mean, you could have a huge amount of power as an independent, whichever way it swings.
I could, but I also love being the mayor and I love serving my community. So it's something I need to decide about which one I want to do. And as an independent, of course, you'll get to have a say and you get that freedom of choice to be able to have your own freedom of ideas and not have to just follow everybody else like the parties do, like sheep. And I guess that's the advantages. But
if it's minority, would you support Labor or Liberal?
I make no apology about it. I will support whatever is best for my community. I'll put my community first. My community has missed out for far too long.
There's two things that you disagree with Chris Minns on vehemently. So how could you back him on that?
Well, I can't back him on Transport. There's no doubt about that. I'll make that really clear.
And you don't back him on gambling? Or do you
I don't back him on gambling because I live in this community and I know the problems of gambling and more needs to be done with gambling and it should have been done a long time ago. Again, it's playing politics. We need to stop the gambling splurge. We need to help those that are most in need, those most vulnerable, and we need to stop the criminals using poker machines as a local till. So we need to make sure that we do that. So on those two things, I've been really clear. I do support the Premier on those things simply because that supports our community. I then support him on the West Invest, but I definitely don't support Chris Minns on the Transport, which is a very, very important. I've put 6 years of my life into fighting for that link, as have a lot of other mayors and prime ministers and state premiers, and we're not going to let that go without a fight because we believe it's the right thing for our community.
All right, I want to talk to you next Wednesday, Frank. Really looking forward to that. We'll see you soon. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. All the best.